Hey everybody, how you doing? Tom Barnas here. Stories from the 78 podcast and website, all mixed together in a nice warm hug for you. If you like the website version, you don't want to hear me talk, you got that. Also, you have this here. So thanks for listening, watching the whole thing. Please subscribe. I'm available everywhere. Every literal person that listens or watches does count, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll get right into it. So if you're new to the podcast, talk about things in and around Chicago from a producer standpoint who also started a website that wants to talk about all the things. So I work for CBS Chicago, where I produce a segment called Jumpstart. And it's every morning, Monday through Friday, with the lovely Jackie Kostick, who is the reporter out in the field. And prior to that, I was at WGN and did stuff with the lovely Anna Bellaval. And then I did a little bit of my own thing at WGN. It was called the Chicago Scene, and it started because the pandemic, honestly. It was always something I wanted to do, but then I couldn't really do it because I was producing for all these other people, right? But in the pandemic, nobody was going anywhere, or nobody wanted to go anywhere. And in the middle of the pandemic, I thought, we really need to give love to restaurants because they are feeding the frontline workers. At the time, if you remember, the United Center was something. McCormick Place was a spot where people were working and trying to keep us all safe, right? So I wanted to talk to these restaurant owners so people would order from them so they wouldn't go out of business. So the Chicago Scene was born, and you can find that on the WGN website, or you can go to my website, Stories from the 78, and I'll link to a bunch of those old WGN ones. But the website now, it's a hybrid of like what I do for CBS now, like where we go and check things out and things that I like on my own. Then in my own time, I go out and shoot videos and whatnot. So last week was a combination. So perfect example, we went to Beverly a few months back in July for a Jumpstart segment. And I love Beverly because I'm from, the Palos Hills area, which is just west of Beverly, right down on 111th Street. I went to Stagg High School on 111th and Roberts and could walk there when I was a kid. So Beverly, a few miles to the east of that. So Beverly Records and the Beverly Bakery, all the things that are the South Side that are wonderful. The epicenter probably is Beverly, Mount Greenwood, the whole thing. So went to Nicky's in Beverly, which there's also Jansen's, was old school hot dog joint, which is great. And Mary Boynton, WGN photographer, Mary Boynton, Sweary Mary. That is like where she grew up, and that's where we've gone to have a few hot dogs over time. But I will say, Nicky's of Beverly, we did a Jumpstart. The owner, fantastic dude. I mean, I knew we were in good company when I rolled up, and the guy was wearing a Foo Fighters hat. Like nobody wears Foo Fighters hat. I would, but I've never seen anybody just rocking a Foo Fighters hat who's the owner of a restaurant on the south side of Chicago. But this gentleman was, and they were gracious, and it was not what I was expecting in terms of like a hot dog joint on the south side of Chicago. And I'll get into it with the video that I did. I shot quick videos of the whole thing and talked over it, narrated the piece. But he bought this place, the owner, Nicky's of Beverly, and transformed it from like a typical hot dog joint into like an artist colony and an immersion of arts. He has these giant shipping containers that make up like the inside of the restaurant where you can sit, hang out, and eat, and it's all painted, with street art. And then he's got these like skateboards because the guy was wearing a Foo Fighters hat. Has like skate decks on the wall that are all different bands, and I think even the Foo Fighters are up there. Guns N' Roses, Metallica. This place is awesome, man. And, so you get this warm welcome when you're in there. And, it's not a gimmicky thing because the whole area that's decked out in like this, you feel like you're in the West Loop when the West Loop was like 15 years ago, West Loop, like when things were up and coming and it was like this mysterious place to be. Nicky's is like that in the inside because, I guess because of the shipping containers and that vibe it gives off, but how they decorated the shipping containers. I mean, they put two on top of each other. You got this big, huge space where you kind of look around, and I show that in the video. And then you go to the back, and there's this back patio area that's freaking rad, man. Like it's just not anything like that on the south side. And then it goes to like the garage part, and the garage part is like the backyard. patio area 2.0 that leads into the garage. That's like the art gallery. Yeah, there's an art gallery at a hot dog stand in Chicago. And when I say hot dog stand, that's almost like an insult to this place because it's more than just a hot dog stand. Their food is really elevated. It's like hot dog is like what they do like with their eyes closed type of food, right? And they have gyros and they have burgers, but they also have like lobster rolls and things to that caliber of food. And they have live music. And I know there's been some weirdness about the live music, and I think it was a permanent thing, but they've had live music. They had live music the morning we were there for CBS. And the people there were so cool. Like the guy was great. He's all tatted up. He's a Greek guy. And he has a little picture of what it was like when he first bought this place to versus what it is now. So if you just want some really good food and you want to check out a spot of the city that maybe you're not familiar with, you don't go down very often, I would check out Beverly. Outside of Beverly Records is probably the coolest record store in the country, hands down. I've done a podcast and story about Beverly Records before, and they are just an amazing spot. Like it's an old school spot started by a female back in like the 60s, which was unheard of back then. And now run by her sons and I think maybe a nephew now or what have you. But either way, Beverly Records is not far from Nicky's of Beverly. Then you got, that's also where the Southside Irish Parade is. So there you go. But my point being is that there's more to Beverly than St. Patrick's Day. Much more. There's the art center. They have a huge art walk that they do every year. I mean, Beverly is really an enclave of art, culture, and food. And that's what you get at Nicky's, because you think it's a hot dog stand, but it's not. It's so much more. And don't mind, I mean, the hot dogs are amazing. The fries are really good. It's not like the crappy fries that like if you grew up on the South Side, there were a dime a dozen hot dog joints everywhere. And everybody knows that hot dog joint that has the little tiny fries that are just kind of meh, but they're good with like when you're eating a hot dog and it's almost like having a chip, with a hot dog. So the fries at Nicky's are great. I mean, and I had a lobster roll there and I had a shake and it was just outstanding. And it was one of our favorite mornings we've done in a long time. So that's on my website, storiesfromthe78.com, Nicky's of Beverly. Check that out. And the website's divided up into neighborhoods and states. So you want to type in certain neighborhood and see if I've been there. You type in Wicker Park, you'll see the things I've done in Wicker Park, Beverly, and so on and so forth. And if there's a neighborhood that you know of that I haven't hit, then please tell me. If you're something going on, I would love to be able to do it for this website and a more in-depth type of thing. And if it works out to do something on the morning show for CBS, love to do that. A lot of people don't like to get up early. So that's kind of been some of our issues. And it was the same issues at WGN, except here we get up earlier, like we start earlier in the morning at 6:45, where I think WGN starts an hour later. So sorry, I'm just enjoying my coffee. So that's how I kind of differentiate between like what's going to go where or whatnot. And some things are just not a fit for broadcast TV and don't make a lot of sense for it, but makes sense here because this is my thing. And the reason why I even started this website at a time, and I'm not this way now, so I'm being really clear, but there was a time where I was just tired of working hard to make so many other people look good. And I'm like, I'm pretty good at this myself. So I started doing it on my own. So the website's grown, the YouTube page has grown, and so are these podcasts. So it is striking a chord. So thank you for listening. And I mentioned before, some things just don't make sense for broadcast. One of those things are like interviews with bands. I love music. I love listening to music. I love listening to people that are in the music industry. And I talked to two sisters that are part of a trio of the band Sheppard. Their last names are Shepard. I mean, I believe it's Emily and Amy or Amelia. They're Shepherd sisters, basically, is what I'm getting at. They talked with me last week, and they were just fantastic. They really got into the essence of what they are as a band, and they have the song called Geronimo. It says, "Say Geronimo, say Geronimo." That song. So, 100% not my cup of tea in terms of music, but it's a catchy tune, right? And I've heard it at restaurants and, it adds, how sometimes Spotify will add music to your playlist? So I've heard it that way where I'm like, oh, I know that band. What's this band? But I don't know them. I don't recognize them. And it's funny because that is the same thing that annoys them is that people don't know them and don't recognize them because their songs were so big and they had such impactful things. I mean, the song is 10 years old and it is over, a few million streams. I mean, I believe, let's see here. I'm looking at their site right now. Uh, 36 times platinum. 36 times platinum, twice platinum here in the States, the band Sheppard. So it's probably the biggest band that you don't know. If you're not sure what platinum means, it's a million sales, or a million streams or what have you. So, Emma and Amy Sheppard are the sisters' names, and George is the brother. He's the singer. And then they have like a touring band with them. But either way, that's like the trio. And we got into a really great conversation. They're from Australia. They moved to Nashville, I believe earlier this year, because they want to reclaim the United States. Because the prior tour before, they said it was a nightmare. George got sick. They lost a lot of money. They had a touring ban here in the States because their band didn't have their visas cleared, and it was miserable. They said it was absolutely miserable, and it kind of left them with their tail between their legs, heading back to Australia, and then realizing like, screw that, man. We're coming back, and we're gonna show why we're great, and we're gonna do it one show at a time, and we're gonna do it on a shoestring budget with just our family and to get us going. And that's what they've done. And they were at the Chop House in Wicker Park. And, listen, you're not going to find too many bands that have sold 36 million records, stream, whatever the case may be. When you're talking in the millions like that, typically they're not playing at the Chop House. But because they're an Australian band and they're bigger everywhere else but the United States, they're big or in Europe and whatnot, they want to come here and they want to conquer the United States, which has been a thing for years in the music industry. So that we get into the specifics of, what happened on the previous tour and, like the biggest differences between living here in the States versus Australia. I mean, they're touring in a band or in a van, I should say. And it's just like I said, it's a shoestring budget. So you have 6 people all together that are, that are making decisions and doing the merch and the setup at the concerts and strip down and the whole thing. So it's interesting that what they got into, and they were very honest with me. It was a great conversation. They were super cool, and I wish them nothing the best. But we really got into a lot of other things too about how Emma would like audition for the band and what it's like playing on the road in a different country and whatnot. So like we really got in depth. And if you are a fan of the band Sheppard, we even get into why they call the album Zora. It has to do with their grandmother. So very cool story. And those are the reasons why I love to do what I do. Because how often do you get to sit down and talk with a multi-platinum band? And still haven't gotten my Dave Grohl, but I'll get that at one point. I mean, he's probably not going to be doing anything for a while in the news. And if you know, you know. Over the past week, it was 9/11, the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. So CBS was at the National Day of Remembrance and Service at Union Station. And it was a powerful day where over 2,000 volunteers were doing their diligence to pack food for people in need to the Greater Food Chicago Deposit. I always get that wrong. The Chicago Greater Food Depository is always what I think I say wrong, but either the Greater Food Chicago Depository. Sorry, excuse me. And that was a great morning, and it was a great way to honor 9/11 because, I mean, how do you honor that? You want to give back, and that's what we did. So there's a little story about that. And then, it's always the end of the summer, right, where I get all weirded out the fact that I haven't done much outside of work in my neighborhood and a couple festivals and concerts. I love going on the bike path in Chicago, on the lakefront bike path specifically. And, I really wanted to explore a little bit further south this year. So after one of our jump starts, I made it so where I was able, because we were on the south side. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for a bike ride, and I I went all the way down to where that new quantum facility is being built on the south side of the old steel mill site. And I explored that, and I kind of got lost there for a little while because it's this really cool place. It's called Steelworkers Park, and it's right there. It's where the old South Water or South Steel Works site was. And they have the giant ore walls that are these concrete structures that are now for rock climbing or pseudo rock climbing. There's bike paths in there. There's sculpture gardens. It's just a cool place, and it's right on the water. And you feel like you're not in Chicago at that point. You feel like you're in a different part of the world. And then you kind of walk out and you kind of take a little look, and then you see downtown. You're like, oh, this is bizarre. So I did a little story about that. I think it's one of the coolest parks in the city. I would highly recommend going out there. You can spend a few hours out there just walking around and checking it out and reading about the history that was on that site and then seeing what it is now. People are fishing out there, hanging out. It's just a cool spot. Unfortunately, though, the bike path does not go that far south. This is like 83rd and Lakeshore Drive. And this version of Lakeshore Drive is not the Lakeshore Drive you're thinking of up north, like downtown. It's not like that at all. It's kind of just like a regular street. So you kind of ride your bike or you go back up in there to go north from that area, and you can kind of catch the bike trail. You hit Rainbow Beach, which is at like 79th in Lakeshore Drive, which I've always heard about from everybody that I grew up with. They would always talk about Rainbow Beach. They'd always go to Rainbow Beach when they were kids, and then the neighborhood changed and a lot of people just stopped going to Rainbow Beach. But nonetheless, Rainbow Beach is still there, and it was a cool spot. And it has this great view of downtown. Like, that's the thing. Like, the north side beaches don't have that view because they're kind of in it. So the south side beaches that really have, and the lake tilts a certain way where you can see downtown. I'm telling you, man, it's like going to the dunes of Indiana and you can see downtown, but really far away and it's small, except not. This view is incredible. So Rainbow Beach, a great beach, and then you drive a little bit further north, and then there's the golf course that is the South Shore Golf Course, and then you have the South Shore Cultural Center, and that is where the bike path starts. So I hopped on there, and I checked that out for a minute, and then I realized I couldn't have anywhere to park my car, so I went to La Barita, the Children's Hospital, and there's a little point like that goes out. And it's just free parking right there. I almost don't want to say it because then, the city's going to put a meter on there and the whole thing. But thanks to Dave Kinnebrew, who told me about that because he said, and he's a photographer at CBS, he said he parked there a few years back and him and his son rode their bikes down to Navy Pier. So I did the same thing, got on my bike, and I rode from that spot all the way up to Montrose Harbor and back. So that's over 30-mile bike ride. And that left me hurting for a few days, but was worth it to see the city. If you've never done the bike path downtown, and, people get intimidated because, if you're talking North Avenue Beach, Fullerton, Armitage, Diversity Harbor, like that part of the bike path is really congested. But anything south of McCormick Place, it's like open road. And most of it is newer. It's paved well, not a lot of people at all. And you just get these breathtaking views of the city. It's much quieter. I would recommend it. I really enjoyed it. And, and then coming into the city from the bike path to like Museum Campus up on Lakeshore Drive, there's this part where the bike path has these trees that kind of hang over it like this, and it gives you like this tunnel vibe. You got the water on your right hand side when you're going north, and you got Buckingham Fountain. I don't know, it's awesome. And then you got the flyover by Navy Pier where that didn't used to exist, and now it makes that whole scene so much easier to get through. But man, oh man, riding your bike along the lakefront, it's my favorite thing to do in the city in the summertime. And my favorite spot's probably Ohio Street Beach all the way up to Montrose Harbor. That's like my favorite spot. It's just like what I think of Chicago when I think of home. That's what goes in my brain. So very cool thing. And speaking of like cool things, Transit Tees in Chicago, I've talked about them before. They're selling the old school, old style signs. They talked to the company, they were cool with it, and they make these old style signs. So you'll see it right there. I talked to the owner of Transit Tees. His name's Tim, and it's just a cool spot there in Wicker Park, where you can get these things like all these old Chicago like little odes to Chicago, and the DNA that is Chicago is there at Transit Tees. It's a super cool place, and you can get the Hellman's old style sign that you've seen in every bar growing up in Chicago of a certain era. You saw them hanging outside of every bar in the city, packaged goods or old school like walk up places, like I'm trying to think of like an old school bar that I can't think of. Not Radius. That's a new school bar. Either way, you've seen them when you walk that north side, south side, west side. They're hanging there. Some still there to this day. So if you want to check out anything old school like that, you want a beer sign that's old style, head to Transit Tees. The last thing, and I know this is a long one today. I'll get out of here. But I went back to Door County. If you ever been up in Wisconsin, Door County is that spot where it's like a V, right? So this is Green. Oh, here we go. This down here would be Green Bay, and this is the water of Green Bay. So the town of Green Bay here, and then you got this, and then all this over here. This is terrible, but all this over here is Lake Michigan, right? And there's this little jet. This is Door County. I'm stopping that now. That's gross. But Door County is that little spot that kind of tips out, that separates Lake Michigan from Green Bay. And it's, oh man, Fish Creek, Sister Bay, all these spots up that way are awesome places to kind of hang out. You feel like you're in New England up there. The wife and I were driving around and we wanted to see the water, and we get to the water and then we're like, oh, let's go to this place. Let's go to this place. Then we stumbled to B's homemade pies. And it is homemade. That's on the sign. B's HO-made homemade pies. And so we're like, wait, is this real? Or, so we walk in, and like, it's a very honest, it doesn't look like a typical bakery that you're thinking of. I mean, it looked like a place that sells, like fish and tackle. So bait and tackle at, a fishing place. And you walk in there though, man, and it's like one of those magazines from when we were kids where you'd flip through it and it had like the candles and it had the jars of jelly and jam and all that. That's what like that place was like, except then you get to the spot with the pies. And if you don't know much about Door County, Wisconsin, Door County is known for their cherry pies. Like they just are. It's a thing. And you're like, meh, cherry pie, blah blah. No, man, I'm like this with pies. They don't get me excited, or not like a donut does. But this cherry pie that I had up there at B's was probably the best damn cherry pie I've ever had in my life. And it made it like I wanted like to eat it all day long. That's how good it was. So we ended up getting some cherry pie. We ended up getting the summer pie, which was cherry, apple, and blueberries, which was freaking phenomenal. And this place is just very unassuming. And they ship their pizzas all over. They freeze them and they ship them nationwide. And I would suggest doing it. We're going to do it for Thanksgiving. And if you have time to make the drive up to Door County, I would do that. Check out B's homemade. I think they're actually called homemade products, but the pies are the best. I'm actually going to check here on the website. But that's one of the last stories I have up on the website. I got a picture of the pie. Yeah, B's homemade products. But since like 1961, and they've been doing their thing up in Door County. Phenomenal. So check it out. I'm going to stop blabbing. I think I got one more in me for this season, and I think it'll be a live stream type thing. I'm gonna try it. So that will be the next podcast next week. But until then, thanks for watching. Go Bears. We'll get into that a little bit. And head over to the website and subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's really where it can make a difference for me. Stories from the 78 on YouTube. Subscribe and tell me what you think. And thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Have yourself a lovely day. See ya.